Commanders Nation, buckle up, because we've got a truly wild one today. Washington just released a veteran safety before final roster cuts even arrived, and the story surrounding his exit is honestly more dramatic than anyone expected, including a cold-blooded jersey number twist courtesy of Stefon Diggs that has fans buzzing. On top of that, Quinn dropped a word choice in his most recent press conference that should have every single Commanders fan sitting up straight, and we're getting fresh practice field updates on who's stepping up and who's causing real concern heading into the final stretch. So if you're new here, welcome to Commanders Focus. Hit that subscribe button right now. We're chasing 200 subscribers, and this breakdown has some real spice in it. Let's get into it. Let's start with the biggest news of the day. Veteran safety Will Harris has officially been released by the Washington Commanders, and he didn't even make it all the way to actual cutdown day. He was let go early. And look, this needs to be said plainly. This is the right call, and frankly, it's about time. Here's the thing about Will Harris that needs unpacking. All off-season and throughout last year, there was this persistent narrative floating around. Just wait until Will Harris gets back, as if his mere presence on the field was going to single-handedly fix whatever ailed this secondary. And watching him this preseason, both in-game action and reportedly out at practice, the honest truth is that he looked exactly like a leftover piece of last year's underwhelming defense, off the pace, a step slow, playing like a player who's lost something physically as he's entered his 30s, potentially connected to a lower leg injury he dealt with previously. And it wasn't just the flashy viral mistakes either, though yes. There was that infamous blown read option assignment where he completely abandoned his run-fit responsibility and let Detroit's backup quarterback walk untouched into the end zone. It went beyond that single play. Watch the simple, unglamorous run plays, the 5, 6, 7-yard gains where opposing offensive lines were getting pushed into the second level because the starting defensive tackles weren't even on the field. In those moments, safeties are supposed to come downhill and fill the run fit correctly. Harris was consistently nowhere to be found on those reps, standing around 10 to 12 yards off the ball while opponents converted easy first downs. For a player whose reputation was built heavily on veteran presence and communication, at some point you have to ask, where are the actual splash plays? Where's the speed? Where's the ability to actually create turnovers and influence winnable outcomes? If communication is the best thing being said about a player who's getting reps with the third stringers, that tells you everything you need to know. And here's the genuinely cold-blooded detail from this entire situation. Stefon Diggs reportedly switched his jersey number to number 3 ahead of the preseason finale, and guess who wore number 3 before that? Will Harris. Now, maybe that's pure coincidence. Maybe somebody in the building gave Diggs a heads up that the number was about to become available. Either way, it's a wild little symbolic footnote to how quickly this transition happened, a receiver claiming a departed defender's jersey number before that player was even officially off the roster. To be clear here, this isn't about piling on Harris personally, and there's genuine hope he lands somewhere else and gets a real opportunity to keep playing in this league. This is about the broader shift happening within this organization right now. A shift toward genuinely prioritizing who actually impacts winning football games over simply valuing tenure or communication skills. There's a great point floating around from a well-respected Commanders analyst that captures this perfectly. At some point, you have to move past the pure evaluation phase and start genuinely locking in on preparing for the regular season. That's exactly what's happening here. All right, quick pause. If you're enjoying this kind of honest, no-fluff breakdown, hit that subscribe button. We're working toward 2,000 subscribers on this channel, and every single one of you watching helps push us there. Okay, let's keep rolling, because there's more happening across this roster that deserves this exact same lens. This same logic needs to start applying to other spots on this roster too. There have been curious practice decisions, certain depth running backs getting first-team reps on days when healthier, More relevant options were fully available. Decisions that simply don't need to keep happening when the outcome is already crystal clear. If a player has no realistic path to making this roster, there's no reason to keep burning valuable practice reps evaluating him instead of building actual game-week chemistry with the players who will matter. Now let's get to practice field notes, because there was real action to report. Jaden Daniels connected with several targets in team drills, hitting a receiver on a nice hands catch, working through some back-and-forth reps with his top targets, connecting deep down the middle of the field, and finding a receiver for a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Practice wrapped with the backup quarterback finding a young receiver for a score of his own. Real, productive rep work as this offense continues installing and fine-tuning heading toward the opener. But the single most important practice development, without question, centers on that ongoing center competition. For the second consecutive day, the rookie center out of Michigan State got serious first-team reps, working extensively with the starting offense. Meanwhile, the other veteran center option remains completely unable to practice at all. He didn't even take the field again today. At this point, the writing on the wall is unmistakable. The realistic center options right now come down to that developmental rookie or a struggling veteran who simply shouldn't be in the conversation for meaningful snaps against a divisional opponent in Week 1. It has to be the rookie stepping into that starting role. Even while acknowledging the very real challenge of throwing an inexperienced sixth-round prospect straight into a road environment against one of the most physically dominant defensive line duos in the entire NFL. He's not expected to dominate right away, but he gives this offense a legitimately better fighting chance than the alternative currently sitting on the roster. And here's the detail that really jumps out. Dan Quinn's tone in his most recent press conference sounded noticeably different. Lower energy, more serious. He specifically used the word disarray to describe how the team looked during that preseason loss to Detroit. That is a striking word choice from a head coach who's typically about as even-keeled and measured as they come. When Quinn reaches for language like that, it's a real signal that the pressure inside that building is mounting heading into the final stretch before the regular season. And speaking of pressure, the injury situation remains a genuine storyline to track. A tight end is dealing with an oblique injury and remains out of practice. An offensive tackle who shifted over to help cover the loss of the Pro Bowl left tackle is currently working off to the side, not practicing. That Pro Bowl left tackle himself remains out long-term. And then there's real concern building around the team's big free agent edge rusher addition. What initially looked like a simple maintenance rest situation involving a calf strain has now stretched toward the 2-week mark without him returning to practice. Quinn confirmed that both this edge rusher and the team's top cornerback will be evaluated next week to determine their readiness for the regular season opener. That's a lot of pressure mounting on a coaching staff that's clearly starting to feel the weight of a shrinking runway before games start counting for real. But here's the encouraging part in all of this, that mounting pressure appears to be forcing real, decisive action rather than continued indecision. Practice intensity has been ramped up. There's a joint practice on the schedule, followed by the preseason finale just days later. And this coaching staff is now making moves that genuinely go against their typically cautious, methodical instincts, like handing meaningful starter reps to an unproven sixth-round rookie at one of the most demanding positions on the offensive line. That's not the conservative, patient approach this staff has generally favored. It's a franchise being forced by circumstance to prioritize actual results over comfort and continuity. And honestly, that shift feels like exactly what this team needs heading into the most important stretch of the entire preseason calendar. So Commanders fans, I want to hear from you. Do you think cutting Will Harris this early sends the right message to the rest of this locker room? And are you feeling more confident or more nervous about this center situation heading into Philadelphia? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, because this roster is shifting fast and there's a lot more still to sort out before Week 1 arrives. That's everything for today's breakdown, Commanders Nation. If you found this valuable, smash that like button, drop your thoughts down in the comments, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. We are on a mission to reach 2,000 subscribers on this channel, and every single one of you watching has the power to help us get there. More roster news, more practice updates, more honest breakdowns all season long. So don't wait, subscribe now, and until next time, Commanders fans, hail to the Commanders.